known for having like all these subtle references to Dante, and these particular episodes are just sort of generally considered in the Sopranos criticism, which is funny that there's Sopranos criticism, but they're generally considered to be allusions to Dante that Chase put in probably to reference the characters' backgrounds.
Another question, Amy?
I have a question for Dwayne. I really appreciated the big scale, and you went fairly clear with the 20th century. I was wondering if you could add anything more about the relationship between Dante and nationalism, which of course becomes problematic in the mid 20th century. Did you find anything surprising or was it really what you expected?
What I found interesting is that a lot of the scholars much prefer to stop where I stopped. But unlike a lot of other figures, again, there's so much in Dante, and Dante can be used in so many ways that the tragedy that was fascism, which called into question all sorts of values, didn't seem to call into question Dante, because you could just, in effect, you could look at a different part of Dante, and well, you could talk about sort of Dante as this Ghibelline prophet, as the nationalists wanted to do. When that fades away, then Dante, this Christian moralist, shows up, and this person who wants that kind of social and cultural peace predominates. So I was looking, and of course I looked fairly rapidly. This is clearly not my field, but what really struck me was that you could call into question all sorts of nationalist readings of literature, but it didn't seem to affect the popularity of Dante. As I said, it did in the 17th century when you had the Counter-Reformation. Dante was seen as very suspicious, but in the aftermath of fascism, at least others who know contemporary Italian culture can maybe correct me, but it strikes me that there was no fall off in interest in Dante.
Any last questions? Yes?
I just want to ask about the high school teaching, because I was a high school teacher of Spanish AP last year, and
Where do you teach?
Mexico. But I was just wondering, are these advanced students or?
No, it's I think they're scared when they look at the reading list at the beginning of the year, and that's where I think a good high school teacher can teach these great books by approaching them and making them accessible to the students. It's not an advanced class. We start APs in the 11th grade, so these are, I get every single 10th grader. I think you're fine with it. You have to spend class time reading together, whereas at the college level, you can assign it and expect them to come back and have understood what they read. Whereas we have them every day in high school, so there's time to weave that into the schedule. Good question.
And how large are the groups?
The average class size in middle school is 12. So small groups, and they're good students. They're excited to learn. They want to be there. So it's not enough to push their arms to do it.
Well, thank you. Oh, one last question?
Yes, just a general question. I wasn't here yesterday, but Dante is generally considered a pre-Renaissance figure, and I was wondering what do any of you feel are his major contributions toward the initiation of the Renaissance?
Hey, I'm retired now. No, that is a good question, and there are lots of debates about how late medieval, early Renaissance, Italian primitives, there are a whole bunch of words you can use to try and describe these people in Italy between, say 1250 and maybe 1400. Dante, because of his popularity, does play an important role. He's there in debates. I mentioned the one debate about language. There's another famous debate among the humanists that starts around 1400 about just how much of a cultural revival can we have, and then the debate, then Dante enters into this debate as to how original was he. Well, there's a famous debate written by a guy named Leonardo Bruni, and he does one of those typical rhetorical tricks where you show that you can argue both sides of a case, and what happens is the protagonist begins by arguing that Dante is old-fashioned, he doesn't fit in this new world, he's backward-looking, and all the rest of it. And then when challenged, and everybody is sort of shocked by the statement, then the next day, the second dialogue, then he reverses that and explains that no, he's always loved Dante, he's memorized Dante, and Dante is terribly important. But Dante, yeah, is a figure. The humanists are doing a very different kind of thing than Dante is doing. But yes, he's culturally important as part of, the Florentines see themselves as in a kind of vanguard in the, especially in the 15th century. He's seen as being part of that.
I guess I try to emphasize the Renaissance part with Dante, but I think one of the pedagogical values of Dante is that it shows that these lines that we draw between Middle Ages, Renaissance, Enlightenment, there's a lot of gray area between these things. It's not as if you were living in the Middle Ages, got to a certain year and said, thank goodness, we're out of the Dark Ages, welcome Renaissance. So Dante kind of shows you actually can have a foot in both worlds and really teach something about both worlds in one work of literature.
Thank you, everyone. We'll take a break for coffee, and the next session starts